I I wrote this in a post-Kentucky Derby state of mind, which at once is somewhat euphoric and somewhat depressed, which means I'm in all considerations bonkers. But what good is individual's own sense of worth? The thing that really matters is what others think of you. Does that make me Margaret Mead's bastard son? I don't know. In fact, the oppressive sun above me has sent me into angina pectoris this morning, and I had to lay down and rest. Feeling somewhat more refreshed after a while, it was my deepest desire to start on the path of writing again. The reason was pretty easy. It was purely need. I anticipated no woman would fall in love with my scatology, or the presses to stop, unload their plates, and present my vision of myself to anyone but the coyotes who loiter outside my window. I shouldn't complain, for once I had selected the correct horse to win the Derby. The tough and composed street sense, a son of street cry. And I had pasted $6 to win on the nag, netting me an insignificant $35, just enough to hand over to my wife. And we promptly blew it on all-you-can-eat pasta at Chi-Chi's Italian clip joint, located obnoxiously in that mecca of public servants, Canyon Country, California. Now, this goes back a couple of years, and I had blinked out in my 58th year, and I was a panting pie of desert feces, unable to pee without getting it all over the floor. And if I had a belly full of shit in me, it was really bad. In fact, each defecation was the highlight of that particular day. And if someone had told me in the hippie acid days that my chief concern in the golden age of my life was going to be how I made out in the crapper and actually depositing the vile substance in a commode, I've laughed heartily back the fool. But who was the stumble bum now? Not that I had ever been any great shakes. Nothing but a lazy man who chooses the sedentary rather than the Byronic way to the graveyard. The eternal question was all still out there. No guru or God had appeared since 1948 to announce this was definitely the way to understanding, and this was the way to happiness without strings attached. There were those who proclaimed there was about to ensue a rapture, the President of these United States amongst them. There were others who swore by colonics, and still others who watched all 20 airings of The Sopranos on HBO each week. Prostitution flourished, and there were still vice squads operating in the year 2007 in every major metropolis, even 2,000 years after the descent of the Almighty Lord's Son. There was a problem getting a piece of poontang off the streets. It is illegal and proceed zealously. What hath got wrought indeed, when a grown man couldn't stand by his domicile and light up a legal joint? Everything good was forbidden or bad for your health. When Cousin Charlie was over at Kaiser Permanente, stroked out at the age of 61. I know his wife had something to do with that. He was overcome watching the tube, like many Western European males of Eastern European descent. All of a sudden it went blank for him, and so his happy life of sushi and eating pussy was over. Flat on his back in the local hospital with a feeding tube running into his nose, ending in his stomach. And naturally he caught a hospital infection, which transfigured into pneumonia, and suddenly the dude had one eye open and was in intensive care with a Filipino guy with his hand up his ass. And his cat-like wife had hired some watchmen to watch over the corpus delicti. And alas, he seemed that he was about to be a long-term veggie. Of course, his mother and his favorite aunt could only look on from heaven, if there was such a residence, and they looked on in shock and horror. But Charlie was a good-time guy with a generous nature and was all too willing to smoke the peace pipe in his younger days. He didn't talk much to me, as I was supposedly too low class and poor to be of any value socially. And no doubt I had insulted him and his family in a myriad of manners. Those things are not taken lightly by second-generation Polish-American Jews, just a few decades removed from the ghetto and concentration camps of dear Europe. There was little I could do to help. I possessed no magic incantations to pull him from his semi-coma. And the word was that he would make no progress for a fortnight for sure. Charlie's stroke had woken me from the dead, for I could plainly see what was in store for my ass come the next few years, months, or fearfully days. Meanwhile, another trip to fucking Boston was looming, and I was in very poor shape. The blood sugars constantly in the 250s range, and the inability to take a turn. I was losing what little sight I had in my good eye. Forget about the bad left one. That was now useless. The price of life was indeed dear.